Good evening. I'm Kathy Lewis, and here's what matters this Memorial Day weekend. Close to 30,000 veterans have returned from Iraq and Afghanistan with wounds. Some you can see and some you can't. Many have survived injuries that would have killed them just a decade ago. But survival doesn't necessarily mean that life returns to normal. Far from it. Lisa Godley brings us the candid conversation she had with a wounded vet about life after injury in the war.
Corporal Aaron Foster wasn't even legal drinking age when he found himself in the middle of a war zone under fire.
I was with H&S Company to start out with. I'm a radio operator, and I ended up with Weapons Company operating in Iraq. We deployed to our FOB, and we were about to go on a patrol, and a round came through the wall. And I was in the doorway, and everyone was just looking at me. And I had grabbed myself because I got shot in my hip, and I looked at everyone, they were looking at me, and I was just in shock. So I looked down, and I had a lot of blood on me, and then I fell over. And I didn't have much time to grasp the situation until after my first surgery, but it was pretty intense.
Foster was one of 3 warriors wounded in the attack. Flying shrapnel hit a fellow Marine in the face and a Navy corpsman in the back close to his spine. They were medevaced out of the war zone.
I didn't think I was going to get wounded where I was at the time, so it caught me off guard, so my experience isn't the same as some people that were in a firefight at the time. But it's all the same. You just hope for the best. And I was very lucky. I can still walk and talk and do all the things I used to do for the most part. So I consider myself very lucky. A lot of people lose arms or legs or worse. I will always be thankful to the corpsman, the Navy corpsman who helped me. If I hadn't been patched up as good as I was, it could have been a lot worse.
After his surgery in Germany, Corporal Foster was flown to the Naval Medical Center Portsmouth for his remaining 2 surgeries. He went home to North Carolina to recuperate for a while and then was reassigned back to the medical center to work as a Marine liaison. He says it's the liaison's job to make sure the Marine or their family member is okay and has everything they need. Being a liaison, Corporal Foster often hears the best and worst parts of military service. He says one of the highlights for any serviceman or woman is getting letters and care packages.
We never send more care packages than we want, especially to Iraq. But when I came here to Portsmouth, I had letters from Girl Scout troops and, just people from my church, and I would never have thought it would have been as comforting as it was until I actually got them. I still have little teddy bears that kids sent me, and still have cards, and it's very comforting. You can never be comforted enough when you get back by stuff like that, so it means a lot.
Corporal Foster also may have just turned 21 years old, but he's experienced enough to have advice for someone going into the service and their family members.
If you're getting ready to go in, I want people to be realistic about the job that they are signing up for. I don't want people to be naive about that. I think that's very important to be realistic about that. And if you're a family member, be supportive. Be as supportive as you can.
Corporal Foster is one of more than 22,000 servicemen and women injured fighting in the war on terror. And if he had but one wish this Memorial Day, would be that people would see this as more than just a long holiday weekend, but as a day set aside to remember the men and women who died in military service to this country.
And I just wish that people would actually think about the troops. There's a lot of opinions about the war. There's a lot that people don't know, that you'll never know, especially if you don't go over there. And I wish that people would just support the troops, if anything, because we do the best we can when we're over there. That's why we're fighting.
For What Matters, I'm Lisa Godley.
Corporal Foster, clearly a young man who is well beyond 21 years of age. We're glad to have with us tonight Dr. Mary Nell Miller, who's a specialist in post-traumatic stress disorder from the Veterans Administration Hospital in Hampton. Kay Reed is a general nurse practitioner at the Hampton VA. She joins us tonight as well to talk about a program that helps soldiers and sailors and airmen reintegrate into non-war life. And Stephen Olson is a veteran of 4 years and 1 month service who's working with other vets at the VA and also helping himself get readjusted to life at home. Thanks to all of you for being with us tonight. You know, Stephen, I have to say, when we were watching that story and Corporal Foster said at the very end of it, he said, I just want families, or I want, if you're going to join the service, I want people to have a clear understanding, to really understand what it is that they're signing up for. I watched you nod your head vigorously, and I wonder what was behind that.
Well, a lot of people that I knew that were in the service joined the service with the misconception that they weren't going to get deployed and they were going to get college money and then they'd go home. They don't understand when they sign up for the military.
Yeah. The
good, the bad, whatever comes with it.
And it's military at war.
And it's military at war.
Yeah.
And so that's what they sign up for, and that's what they're going to be getting.
And in your situation, what caused you to sign up?
It was always something in the back of my head that I always wanted to do. And then the time was right, and I was in school, going to college, and I was like, you know what, this isn't where I want to be right now. Mm-hmm. So I took about half a year, did the research, and ended up joining the Army Reconnaissance.
I see. And how did you get injured?
Well, I came back from Iraq, and during the reacclimation period, which is the 30-day period where they watch you, you do periods of exercises, I started becoming symptomatic with lung problems. And then they started sending me to pulmonologists, they started sending me to a variety of doctors. Mm-hmm. So it kind of sort of happened while I was there.
Yeah.
And then when I came back is when I became more symptomatic with what it was.
And that's really interesting, because that is the case for a fair number of people, that they don't necessarily get injured in the way, for instance, that Corporal Foster did, right, or in direct combat, because he makes the point that he wasn't in direct combat at that moment. But it's the kind of thing that you're experiencing, something a little more non-specific.
Right, exactly, and it's the hardest one.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a bullet hole, you don't
right.
have an arm missing. There's something inside that they have to dig and find.
And is it how is your experience been with that process of digging and trying to find out what it is?
Well, it's been a long process. Since coming to the Hamptons, it's actually been tremendously better.
Really?
Yes.
Where were you previously?
They were seeing me up in the District of Columbia, up on Irving Street, and it was not. I guess it wasn't as organized and well towards the vets and what they need. Mm-hmm. But since coming down here, it's been miraculous.
So they assigned you down here then?
Well, I moved down here.
I see.
And then I contacted the local Hampton. Within a week, I already had an appointment with my doctors, and I've already seen a couple of specialists. I'm seeing one next week. So mm-hmm. they're really taking care of me at this place, yes.
So you feel like that piece of it is going well? Because one of the things we had heard previously, and this was before there was some new infusion of monies to do some more hiring, is that vets were waiting an awfully long time. And we still hear that in some regards, but that vets were waiting an awfully long time to get service. That hasn't been your experience?
No, not really. Yeah. I don't think I've had to wait over 10 days to see a doctor.
And so what's the status of your treatment right now? What is your situation?
Well, they've concluded that I have a lungs problem. They're still doing, I guess you could say, treatment and exercise studies to see exactly what's wrong with me at this point, because I have certain things that they can see, but they don't know what the underlying cause of that problem.
Well, it's a very welcome home, by the way. And you're out of the service now, right?
Yes.
And why did you decide not to reenlist? Just curious.
Well, actually, I was medically discharged.
I see. So you couldn't continue.
Couldn't, right.
I see. Would you have if you could have?
Oh, yes. To try to keep them from discharging me, I actually reenlisted for another 6 years.
Oh. Just to try to get that done, huh?
Yeah, try to kind of sort of ump them to give me a medical reclass board rather than a medical evaluation board, which is what ultimately gets you discharged.
I see. All right. Well, Kay Reed is with us as well tonight. She's a general nurse practitioner, and I know you've been working here with Stephen and with other folks who are reintegrating. What is the program that you're working with, and what do you do?
Well, we're the Seamless Transition Program. We work with all the returning combat veterans that come back, that are medically discharged, medically retired, or they just show up at our front door and say, you know, I've been to combat.
Yeah.
We sit them down, we talk about their experiences, what they've been exposed to, and then we try to line them up with whatever clinics or specialists they need. Everybody goes to primary care. If they need to see a rehab specialist, we will line that up. If they need to see a mental health specialist, we'll line that up. We try to have a one-stop shop where they can come in, get registered, have their initial evaluation by us, and then they can go out and get in contact with their primary care provider and any specialist.
And we should note that at Hampton, you're not seeing a lot of burns, that sort of thing. You really are in the business of more orthopedic kinds of issues. Is that right?
The number one complaint our veterans come in with are musculoskeletal conditions, joint pain, back pain, neck pain. From that, we go to orthopedics, rehab medicine.
And how long have you been in the program? Or how long have you been at the VA?
I've been at the VA 28 and a half years.
So do the injuries coming out of this conflict, are they different in some ways than the ones from earlier conflicts?
I think that they're probably about the same, but we just have a more unified approach in making sure that they get what they need when they come the first time. And we track them to make sure that in 30 days, get a call and say, did you get all of your appointments? Are you satisfied? Is there something else that we need to do?
One of the things that we're hearing, and it's disturbing, is this business about the VA not being able to accurately estimate the number of folks who are going to be injured, which, to be frank, seems like not a difficult thing to do. In that, there are numerical formulas that we've used from time immemorial to figure these things out. And yes, you have to adjust them for this conflict. Dr. Marianelle Miller, I know that's the issue of resources has been an issue, particularly around post-traumatic stress, which is your specialty, in terms of trying to find enough people to be there for these folks who are coming back who may be having symptoms.
Yes. One of the things that we did at the Hampton VA about 2 years ago was we wrote for an enhancement to our PTSD program to allow us to add 3 additional staff. The PTSD staff is rather large. We have 2 psychiatrists, 2 psychologists, 4 social workers, and students, interns, residents that are working with us in the area.
Right.
And so we've felt very blessed to be able to have the support at Hampton to be able to treat some of what I think we're talking about hidden wounds of war.
Right.
Yeah.
And our guest Stephen Olson was saying that one of the things that's been difficult from his perspective is he doesn't have a bullet wound, he doesn't have a missing limb, that sort of thing. And the same is true with PTSD. It's not something you necessarily see on the surface.
Exactly. And it's something that we've noticed that doesn't always present itself early on. We've noticed that when somebody comes home from a war zone, they're generally very happy and euphoric.
You can understand that, can't you?
Yes, that they survived. And even troops that have had people die around them or not die around them, they come home and they say, we did it, and they're very happy.
That's done, it's over, ready to move on.
Right. And I think one of the things that the VA and the military are working together with each other is to identify more quickly people that might have symptoms of post-traumatic stress. So I know that one of the things the Virginia National Guard did was they invited us to do some pre-deployment briefs, actually, with the troops that went out a year ago. And that was very exciting, a bit terrifying for me to talk to troops going to war. But now they're coming back and they're asking us to come and talk with them within the month that they come home. So less than 30 days that they're coming back.
And that's so interesting too, because we've been spending most of our conversation focused on sort of the regular military people who are in this for a career. But we do know that there have been so many civilian soldiers called up into this National Guardsmen, that sort of thing. And so they may not necessarily be predisposed in their thinking to these kinds of issues.
Right.
And so when you talk to these folks, what do you tell them in terms of symptoms, particularly if you have circumstance where the symptom doesn't necessarily show up right away?
That's actually one of the interesting things about PTSD is that it's post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
So we expect the symptoms to appear, if they're going to appear, really within 30 days out. That would be considered the post time frame. But we know that there are people that come and see us many, many years after the traumatic event to seek treatment. The main symptoms that people will see is the first thing is some sort of experience that involved death or threatened death of them or somebody else, and the person that had the experience felt feelings of fear, horror, or helplessness. The next set of symptoms we see are re-experiencing symptoms that include things like the nightmares. A wife might pick up on that sooner than the husband, or vice versa, depending on the gender. Nightmares, intrusive thoughts, kind of just staring off. One of the words that have been used is the 1,000-mile stare. So they're thinking. They kind of get into thinking about the past. The next set of symptoms we look for are what is called avoidance symptoms, and that's part of what makes PTSD a bit of a mystery to live life with, because people want to put it in the past. It's over, it's done, I survived. But the family will start noticing that the person might be withdrawing from them socially. Maybe if there's some sort of a small event, let's say the death of a family pet for something, the person just isn't responding the way they used to emotionally. Something has changed with them. They've done some sort of transformation to put their feelings under wrap. Feelings in a war zone can get you in trouble, so they learn to repress feelings. Last set of symptoms that we see that is probably the most prominent set that we're seeing with our Iraq-Afghanistan veterans is hyperarousal.
What does that mean?
That means difficulty with sleep, difficulty with irritability. We're seeing a lot of people having a difficult time driving. The Hampton roads, highways, are a lot like some of the apparently roadways in Iraq or Afghanistan, and so they're being triggered by...
You mean in terms of the degree of traffic, that sort of thing?
Right, and the overpasses, for example, the searching for the IEDs, things like that.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And so this is similar to that, and so they're having some issues with that.
Right.
You know, the thing I couldn't help noticing in that piece, that fine piece that Lisa Godley did, was the idea that this young man in the piece seemed so much older than 21 years old. You know, he celebrated his 21st birthday over there, and you know, they say war changes you, and I think, hey, you can really see that.
You can. The youngest soldier I have talked to returning was 19. The majority of them that we see are between 22 and 31.
Yeah.
And they're in a growth period. And when they come back, they're mature. They don't have the same, their peer group that they left, they don't have the same shared experiences. So they have trouble adjusting back into that peer group. And there may not be another peer group available. So we talk to them when they come to see us about that.
Right.
How are you getting along with your friends? You know.
And Stephen Olson, how would you say that war has changed you, or has it?
Yeah, you grow up really fast. I mean, my dad started asking me for advice at some time.
Wow.
I mean, it's just, it changes because my dad's generation, they really didn't have a war. You know, they were after Vietnam. There was nothing. And so their generation, they turned to look at us and they're like, okay, you know, respect to you. And so it just makes us grow up a lot faster. Some of my friends, some people I newly meet, they're like thinking I'm in my 30s plus, and I'm only 27.
Wow.
So it ages you some, more ways than one, yeah.
You know, one of the other things, and I'm not going to put you on the spot about this, but one of the things that just this week there was news about this, about one of the very much unspoken aspects of this war, particularly because so many young men between 20 and 24 are coming back injured from this, has to do with intimacy, has to do with sexual intimacy. And you heard Senator Bob Dole talking about this last week at a hearing, and the idea that this is perhaps one of the last great secrets to unlock. And do you experience conversations about that, Dr. Miller?
Indeed.
I mean, it comes under the category of feelings, as you were saying earlier.
Right,
Yeah.
Indeed. I think one of the things that happens when somebody is in war is they get very sensitized, even in their body. And so when they come home and they try to get close to their wife, even just leaning up against somebody on the couch, their wife leans up against them can make them feel very much closed in and at risk. So the simple things, there are some veterans that we work with where the homework assignment is to hold hands with your wife. Let's work on those sorts of things.
Wow. So you can appreciate that. And I think they're going to start doing some more work around that and trying to get people to sort of talk about that a little more freely. One of the things that has also happened is this idea of the stigma of coming forward to asking for help. It seems like that's relaxing a little bit. Is that your sense?
I think so, and the family member is so important with that. That's some of the outreaches that we've done into the community, is to try to help the family understand the impact. And so one of the things, if we treat the wife or the husband and the veteran together, we've learned that gives them a leg up, I guess you would say, an advanced start in terms of working on those issues. So very quickly, if there's somebody watching this show who's having issues or family members having issues, should they call the VA directly? Indeed, or the Vet Center. The VA is at 722-9961. My extension is 2405, and I'm willing to field any sort of questions about PTSD. We also have the Veterans Outreach Center in Norfolk, which is at 623-7584, and we have a Vet Center outreach worker up in the Williamsburg area. So there has been a lot of effort around trying to hire the numbers of folks it will begin to take to respond to this, and one hopes the VA can get a better handle on how to predict this and how to stage the proper folks to respond to it. Stephen Olson, what are you doing these days? I'm actually an auto claim adjuster right now while I go to school full time. Okay. Well, good for you. And what do you hope to do with your degree? I'm going to be network management with an emphasis on security. Wow. Very good. Stephen Olson, thank you for being with us. Dr. Marinelle Miller, thank you for being with us. And Kay Reed, thank you for joining us as well. Thank you. Well, the military is increasingly realizing that enlistment is a decision made by an individual, but re-enlistment is a decision made by a family. The Army has always recognized soldiers for their commitment and accomplishment, but 3 years ago, the Army started to reach out to the families and communities that support the soldiers as well. The program is called Freedom Team Salute, and it's already honored more than 1 million parents, spouses, employers, and Army veterans. Colonel David Griffith says the program recognizes those who share in a soldier's sacrifice.
You know, as soldiers, and we receive recognition through awards and decorations and promotions and things like that. But this is a way to recognize people that don't always receive the thanks that they really deserve, our families. If you'd like to recognize an individual or an organization that's supported a soldier, you can visit Freedom Team Salute's website at freedomteamsalute.com. We'll have that link on our website as well at whatmatters.tv. Your honoree will get a certificate of appreciation, an Army pin, and the quarterly Salute newsletter. And I'll be back in just a moment with a final thought. Throughout Hampton Roads this Memorial Day, there will be public commemorations of those who've lost their lives in war. But a columnist named Pat LaMarche in the Bangor, Maine Daily News had a different take. She tells the story of some military people she was talking with recently who said, "Oh yeah, this country loves its soldiers. They love us when we're fighting, and they love us when we're dead. It's the time in between that they don't care much about us." There are some shameful chapters in the veterans' story. 400,000 homeless veterans, thousands more having trouble drawing the line between here and there, higher jobless rates among returning vets than among the rest of the population. And there has been quite a great debate in this country about the wisdom of this war and its conduct. What there can be no debate about is the obligation we owe returning men and women who signed up for duty on our behalf. And so while many of us display our yellow ribbons, I hope we might take another step. I hope we'll insist that men and women who have left limbs in Iraq will be outfitted with the best prosthetic devices possible and not just the ones with the highest volume discount. I hope we'll reach out to veterans whose wounds are on the inside and let them know that there is no shame in admitting they need help. And I hope we'll demand that veterans with traumatic brain injury, the signature injury of this war, get state-of-the-art treatment that they and their families deserve. And I hope their families get the kind of support they will need for what is truly the long war. We'd like to hear what you have to say about this program or any other
that we may bring to you. It's very easy to be in touch with us. You can write to us at WHRO, 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk, Virginia 23508. You can call us at 889-9437. And you can also check out our website at whatmatters.tv. That's where you can join the conversation with other viewers, find out what's on their minds, and they'll find out what's on yours. It's a great place to leave your comments, and you can also watch past editions of this broadcast if there's one you may have missed along the way. All of that and more at whatmatters.tv. We hope you'll take advantage of that. It's a neat little website. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Next week, a look at the upcoming Republican primary in Virginia. In addition to choosing convention delegates, Republicans will be choosing a candidate they hope will succeed the retiring Senator John Warner. It should be a very interesting race. We'll see you next week.